Hi guys, so Brexit was all about taking back control. Well, now we have the news that taking back control of the border can wait a few months. So Boris Johnson's government has announced that it's delaying a whole host of border controls. They are not going to happen in October as originally planned, but now some will take place in January while the others will be shifted to July next year. The types of checks we're talking about are physical ones on food and other animal-related products. Why are we looking at delays? Well, the government isn't ready. The infrastructure isn't in place yet. Just a side note, remember last year when the EU offered Boris Johnson's government the possibility of extending the Brexit transition period? That would have allowed the UK to prepare properly for Brexit, but it would also have meant that businesses that are now suffering the consequences of third country status would actually be able to trade as before. This was completely rejected by Brexiteers. They wanted to get out of the EU as soon as possible, and to hell with the consequences. Well, now the consequences have arrived. Anyway, back to the checks. To demonstrate how confused the Brexit government is at the moment, they were telling businesses as late as last week that they should prepare for checks in October and January, probably at the same time they were planning to postpone them. The Food and Drink Federation said that as late as Monday, members of its organisation were being told to prepare for the original October and January deadlines. In regards to export health certificates, these were originally expected to be required in October this year. Now they'll come into force in July next year. The physical checks on products of animal origin, which includes food and plants, are in need of border control posts, and they are delayed until July 2022. Other security checks are also delayed for another 8 months. Businesses in Great Britain have been investing both money and people into getting ready for these new post-Brexit border controls. However, many have highlighted how many of these checks would have been impossible to enforce due to the lack of government infrastructure, both physical and electronic, but also the confused message coming from government on how businesses should actually prepare. What is interesting is that there aren't many cases of such problems on the EU side. Following Brexit, the EU advised member states to prepare for a hard Brexit, even if a deal was achieved. While the EU took a more realistic approach to Brexit, preparing for the worst, Brexiteers were denying reality and lying to both the public and industry about any possible disruption, until the very last minute. Because full checks are taking place on the EU side and not on the UK side, with the exception of Northern Ireland, it has resulted in a massive advantage for EU exporters and headaches for UK exporters. A spokesman for the Food and Drink Federation said that companies who invested in preparing will now be penalised, while those who didn't are in a sense rewarded. The spokesman also said, "The repeated failure to implement full UK border controls on EU imports since the 1st of January 2021 undermines trust and confidence among businesses. Worse, it actually helps the UK's competitors. The asymmetric nature of border controls facing exports and imports distorts the market and places many UK producers at a competitive disadvantage with EU producers. However, this delay will not fix other problems Britain is facing as a result of Brexit. Supply chain issues will not be resolved. Numerous sectors have been calling on the government for months now to introduce a temporary visa scheme as a minimum. This would help ease the heavy goods vehicle driver shortage. The response from the Brexiteer government is, hire more British workers instead." The Food and Drink Federation has called on the government to provide financial support to those businesses who prepared for the original deadlines, just to see all of the delays once again. The CBI has been calling for action to ease the supply chain crisis as we approach Christmas. They have also asked the government to revisit a bespoke veterinary agreement with the European Union that would help avoid most of the checks that are expected to come into force in the coming months. Boris Johnson and the Brexiteers in charge wanted to exit the European Union as quickly as possible, even if that meant businesses and government not being ready. Warnings were ignored so that Brexit would not be criticised. So checks on imports from the EU have now been postponed. So much for taking back control. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this, As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?